Hey, what's up? I'm Casey and this is CaseyReacts. Today I'm going to be going through Reddit's r/changemyview. Changemyview is the subreddit you go to if you have an opinion, but you're open to changing it. If you can be presented with the right evidence or the right argument, you can easily change your view. How it works is I'm going to read the initial post, then I'm going to read the top comment, and then after that, I'm going to throw in my own insight if I know enough about it. Alright, let's get right to it. While there is honor in wanting to serve your country, joining the US military is being an underpaid mercenary for oligarchs. The US has not fought a defensive war since World War II, and at most, maybe Korea could be justified, but that's extremely hard to do. In recent years, the next closest justifiable war, Afghanistan, involved killing a terrorist group that had nothing to do with 9/11, and Osama bin Laden was found hiding in Pakistan, not even in Afghanistan. As for Iraq, it was based on a lie for special interests from the start. Of course, there's nobility in serving one's country, and we need a military, but when our military budget is largest than the next 10 countries combined, and the US military has killed innocent civilians in every country it's invaded for the past half-century plus, it's hard to see being in the US military as anything other than being an underpaid mercenary for the benefit of shitty defense companies. To clarify, I'm referring to how the US military is and had been for over half a century. I don't deny that a defensive military force is necessary, but the US military goes way beyond self-defense to empire defense. Alright, let's get into this. You have a naive view of the purpose of the military. There are hundreds of reasons, messages, signals, and statements being made by every action of the US military at any given point. We have not fought a defensive war since World War II. Depends on your definition of defensive. We do not want to fight a war on US soil. We have been remarkably successful at avoiding this for 70 years. We're defending our ideals, allies, and strategic interests on other people's soil. Sometimes this is intended to disrupt. You say justified war, but you don't define justified. I'm going to assume what you meant. Correct me if I'm wrong. Korea. South Korea was our ally. North Korea was allied to China and the Soviet Union. North Korea attacked South Korea with Chinese and Soviet help. This was a proxy war between the US, China, and the Soviets. China and the Soviets have the same policy we do of not wanting to fight on our own soil. Again, North Korea, with major power backing, attacked South Korea, our ally. That sounds pretty defensive to me, in addition to the global proxy conflict between democracy and communism. Vietnam. Similar situation globally, another proxy conflict. North Vietnam invaded South Vietnam, our ally. Sounds defensive. Iraq. More complicated. Regime change was likely the primary motivation. We'll never know for sure. The stated rationale was partially true. There was a threat of WMDs. They turned out to have already been destroyed or removed, but we had no way of knowing because Saddam actively impeded the inspection process due to his own state political needs. During interviews, he stated he impeded inspections to maintain the illusion of WMDs to Iran. He had previously had WMDs and had used them. Impeded inspections to prove he did not have them, and basically said, bro, trust me, to the UN. Afghanistan. Actually did shelter Al-Qaeda, who was responsible for 9/11. Osama was found in Pakistan, true, but his base in Kandahar, where 9/11 was planned, was also found, Tarnak Farms. That was the baseline reasoning. Now, for the next level Middle East conflicts, I'm paid to be a target for bad people that want to kill Americans. That's what I volunteered for. There are bad people all over the planet that want to kill Americans and or fight us. If we're isolationist in the US, this happens to be in New York City, Pennsylvania, and DC, in the waters of Yemen, and kill civilians and military. If we make a very public presence in Iraq and Afghanistan, these attempts happen in Iraq and Afghanistan against people prepared to deal with them. At the end of the day, I'm American. An American life is more valuable to me than a non-American life if I'm forced to choose between. I would expect my adversary to believe the same for their country. I'd rather fight in their backyard than in mine. Most of the fighters in Iraq during OIF were foreign fights who came to fight us. We gave them a location where they could find us. Again, their backyard rather than ours. This is still defensive regarding American people. We also conduct exercises as a show of force to demonstrate our intent and prevent war. There is always an aircraft carrier group in the area of the South China Sea. There's almost always a US Navy presence near the Strait of Hormuz. This is sending a message. Most military powers will not pick a fight that they will lose, which is one of the many reasons that no nation has attacked the US in 70 years. Public US doctrine varies between fight and win two fronts simultaneously, and fight two fronts simultaneously and win one at a time. This means that we are prepared to fight China and Russia as examples simultaneously and either win both or win one and hold the other. The world is becoming more dangerous not because we are being too aggressive, but because we are being too passive. Near-peer threats are beginning to believe that they could win a war against the US, which makes it increasingly attractive to try. Our military budget is so large because we are Europe's military power, NATO. We are the Pacific military's power within our sphere of influence, Philippines, India, Japan, etc. We have major forces semi-independently operating in 5, I think presently, EUCOM and AFRICOM recently merged theaters. In addition to conducting exercises throughout the world to demonstrate that we are capable of fighting if we must. We maintain a military able to provide overwhelming force against the two other near-peer adversaries to end conflict quickly and with minimal American loss of life. That's expensive. A large portion of that budget is towards R&D also. Civilians will always be killed. It's unfortunate and a fact. This is mitigated to the best of our ability. Many propaganda videos you'll see and articles you'll read actively misinterpret and miscount civilian casualties. In firefights, we've had insurgents killed whose weapons were then taken. I would be extremely surprised if this individual did not appear as a civilian casualty in some list. That's one of the many problems with fighting an insurgency. Civilian versus militant gets very murky when they can change by picking up or setting down a firearm. That's why, as an American, I would rather fight in somebody else's yard. My oath is to defend America and her people, not the world. If we do not project power, others will fill the vacuum. America may not be perfect by any stretch, but we're a damn sight better than any other potential to fill that role. So, I'm not 100% sure how much I believe that response. I agree. It is important to have a strong enough military to protect America. However, what this guy is saying kind of sounds like how schools kind of whitewash history. You know, how people are thinking something like teaching critical race theory about America's incredibly racist past is a bad thing, and they try to whitewash it and make us sound like the good guys and like we've never done anything wrong. That's what this guy is sounding like. He expresses, yeah, America isn't perfect, but the way he's making it sound makes it sound like we had no choice but to do these things, which I personally would disagree with. I'm not entirely educated on the different wars that we have been in and the reasons of them, but for the most part, it's just sounding like he's saying that America needs to beat its chest every now and again to make sure that everybody knows not to mess with us, which I kind of disagree. I think that taking and helping every single person, even if they're allies, helping every single person fight their battles, it's A, huge waste of money, and B, gets even more countries pissed at America. I feel like staying out of those and just maintaining, hey, NATO, we have a military presence, would be enough. I feel like it would save a lot of money and a lot of lives, civilian lives and American lives, if they were to just stick with themselves, and if something does happen to us, yeah, go for it. If we are specifically asked for help, then yeah, that'd be up to the president. But taking the fight out to their side just to say, hey, we're tougher than you, so don't attack us, that's pretty much just us being what we fear they will do. We are being the terrorists in this explanation. You can tell that there's very little concern for loss of life on the other side whenever this guy says very specifically, hey, if someone's life is lost and they're not American, then it's no big deal. I will choose to save an American life over anybody else's. You can tell they don't care about helping others. They care about being part of America. And that's un-American. Being American is wanting to do your best and help everyone, regardless of what they are, regardless of what they have done. That's what I believe being a true American is about. Don't take my word as fact. As I said, I am not very educated on this particular subject, but that's my opinion on it. In the event of a real zombie apocalypse, the world would easily survive and humans would reign victorious. To first establish some middle ground, I would think that zombies in this scenario are the typical. They're deadly, but not overly supernatural. They should embody the typical bite and bodily fluid types of infection with instantaneous, 1 hour incubation times. Sad to change such a vital piece of info, but a user made a brilliant point on how it would be self-contained if it was instantaneous. Edit. 100% infection rate. All of them should have dull intelligence. Their speed, however, is fast, as in they can run. In the end, they're still vulnerable to wearing down after a year or so. To kill these monsters, it would need a shot to the brain, under the assumption that it starts with patient 0 in a random place across the world, and does not take down a significant part of our population all at once. This is all considering that they do not have help from the dragons or other supernatural phenomena. Why I believe the world would reign victorious. Not sure why they brought in dragons into this. Number 1. Our media is saturated with zombie apocalypse films. It has been an idea so heavily fancied, large portions of the population would already be mentally prepared and know what to do. 2. Even if whole countries are torn to the bones by zombies, even if a single country survives, it'll be able to launch a worthy counterattack. Taking superpowers like the US and Russia, for example, as long as either of them are able to semi-effectively repel the zombies and adapt, the zombies would be screwed. Number 3. One of my pet peeves is the portrayal of many militaries in zombie movies. For movies that originated from all across the world, the military is somewhat useless. At the end of the day, the main character is usually shown to be even more capable than the military. This is far from the truth. I doubt any zombies could truly wipe out any decent military. Number 4. There are already contingency plans. This one relates to topic 1 and 3. At this point in time, many people and even governments already know how to deal with the apocalypse. I think that you fail on some premises here. First, zombies can't be undead. This doesn't work. A human body can't work without blood flow and respiration. The most realistic scenario for this is that the zombies would be created by a parasitical, probably fungi infection. In this case, zombies won't rot or decay as your average corpse zombie. Second, there would be a need for a primary way of infection beyond the classic bite and fluids. Otherwise, the apocalypse won't even start, because if patient 0 manages to convert an entire town or city, as soon as they face a natural barrier or a lack of people to chase after, the Z infection would end right there and then. Because differently to the modern pandemic, zombies can't choose to selfishly travel and infect other people. They're limited by animalistic instinct. On the other hand, if there's a primary way of infection that did manage to travel around the world, spores carried by wind and water for example, containing it becomes incredibly harsher because you're no longer safe as long as you prevent contact with the zombie itself, but you'll also have to figure out what this primary method of infection is and make sure to avoid it. Third, have you not seen how governments and most importantly people reacted to this pandemic? Like, I would be surprised if a zombie apocalypse people don't start holding Z parties to see who got infected first. In essence, it kind of depends on how the infection works and who it spreads. There's also the human factor, but we've already seen that we suck at it. Okay, so, I, like every other 13 to 15-year-old guy, was obsessed with zombies. Now, I've done a lot of looking into this kind of stuff and looking into the reality of whether or not something like this can happen. And it is possible, very, very slim chance, but it is possible for a zombie apocalypse to come. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be like Night of the Living Dead, zombies rising from the graves, but more of the infection. Think World War Z. Think 28 days later. Think 28 weeks later. At some point, there could be some sort of an infection that could do this kind of thing. Take rabies, for example. Rabies is a disease where if you get it and it's transferred by saliva, you can bite someone and give them rabies if you have rabies. It makes people not themselves. They're a lot more aggressive, they have an aversion to water, and they are definitely willing to go chomp down on you. Now, if you can take this and for some reason it can mutate with some sort of a flu virus, something that can spread through the air, then yeah, this could be an actual potential thing that could happen. Now, it's very unlikely that anything like this will ever happen, especially with the infection rates and the speed that's needed for them to turn. But if something like this were to happen, if they were to have zombies like that, I genuinely believe that we wouldn't survive. There are so many people that say, oh yeah, I could take down zombie apocalypse. That's true. You can think that. If you have a gun, yeah, you can take out a good few of them. But if you really have dozens, if not hundreds of people sprinting at you, trying to attack you, there's no way that you'd be able to run, shoot, and reload without getting any kind of exhaustion, without getting worn down. There's no way that you'd be able to handle that and not get overrun. Yeah, Militaries, they'd have a great time doing it. They would be super, super secure. But eventually, they're going to run out of ammo. They're going to run out of whatever provisions they need. And the average civilians are all going to be these brain-dead monsters that are just wanting their next meal. I genuinely don't believe that any military in the country, any military in the world, could honestly take this on and come out the other side victorious. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this one because it's cringy as hell, but my inner 13-year-old came out and was like, this is our time to shine. So, with that, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to come back throughout the week for more content. Please like and subscribe to help keep this channel going, and don't forget to have a great week.